we'll end up with a panel led by Mrs. Rachel Kelly, who had very professionally moderated the previous panel in the AIBotics series. The panel is broadcasted by Singapore Radio, and I will hand it over to Oliver. Thank you, Oliver.
You've done an excellent job, and I believe the radio station is ready for us. And Ms. Rachel Kelly, shall we start?
Money FM 89.3, Singapore's first business and personal finance station.
Money FM 89.3.
You're listening to Money FM 89.3. I'm Rachel Kelly, and now we have a special panel discussion for you as part of AIBotics 2020 Go Digital series, organized by APARA and Sphere Exhibits, a subsidiary of Singapore Press Holdings. We'll be discussing digital care and the new normal post-COVID-19. Now, the world's population is aging, and virtually every country in the world is experiencing growth in the number and proportion of older persons in their population. According to data from World Population Prospects, by 2050, 1 in 6 people in the world will be over the age of 65. That's up from 1 in 11 in 2019. And this means that population aging is poised to become one of the most significant social transformations of the 21st century. And in this digital age, we've all got a device on us at some point throughout the day, or with us at all times throughout the day. The question is, how can technology enhance active aging and community care? And what will digital care look like in the new normal post-COVID-19? Well, we aim to answer all of these questions and much, much more with our extremely esteemed panelists that we have with us today. And joining us for the panel, we have Mr. Jussi Peltonen, and he's the CEO of HobbyCare from Finland, Dr. Kelvin Tan from the Singapore University of Social Sciences, Dr. Oren First, and he's from Interactive Companion in Israel. We have Dr. Yael Ben-Venisti, the CEO of Mediterranean Towers Ventures, also from Israel, and Dr. Minas Liro-Kapis from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. So welcome everybody from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So first, I'm going to ask all of you, today we're going to be discussing digital care and the new normal post-COVID-19, and you're all experts in your own fields. And I'd like to start by asking you, what does digital care mean to you? Perhaps, Jussi, you can start us off.
Sure thing. Basically, HobbyCare is running a hobby club. It's a senior daycare facility in Horse City. And we see basically 3 elements during this post-COVID situation. One trend that we need to do is to extend our reach to our clients at home, because they might not be able to join us in the senior daycare. Another trend is to go more towards the preventative care, so that we can spot early warning signs earlier on. And of course, the third one is, how do we make our clients enjoy themselves and to have more fun with the use of technology while doing their rehabilitation?
And Dr. Kelvin, perhaps you can share with us your thoughts as well.
Sorry. Actually, I think for technology in the community in particular, it's very important that the seniors have a chance to maintain that social interaction and prevent them from isolation from people around them. So technology is really very keen, especially in the community setting, preventing them from isolation, and also telehealth will probably be one of the most popular ones.
And Dr. Oren, earlier you spoke about companionship as well. Perhaps you can tell us, what does digital care then mean for you?
Yeah, I think that the main attribute is having a friend. And it says, don't look at the digital companion as someone who is taking care of errands in the house, but rather being a close friend. And as a result, there's more emphasis could be placed on the emotional aspects in the interaction, as well as with the physical attributes of being close to someone, meaning the attributes related to touch, breathing, hugging, smiling, eye movements to show empathy, etc. And I think that these would be the key attributes that would be instrumental.
And Dr. Yale, perhaps we can move on to you. I think perhaps there's a connection issue at the moment, but perhaps you can share with us. You speak to many different startups and look across the board, and perhaps digital care doesn't mean one specific sector. So can you narrow it down then? How would you define digital care when you're looking at the industry?
Well, I'm looking at treating the person and not treating the disease. When you are looking on the person, you are looking on a medicine that is predictive, that is preventive, that is personalized, and all this can be summarized by using different technologies for different challenges, but all of them are about treating the person, all the aspects that is around the life of this person. It can be social life, it can be his health situation, his environment, his city, his home, everything, but everything is around him and not around a special disease.
And Dr. Minus, last but not least, tell us from your perspective, because you've come up with some very innovative solutions. So how does digital care fit in with what you're developing?
Yeah, we try to provide robotic solutions for healthcare, and we try to make the robots more clever, more dexterous, in order to improve the life of the patients in a better way.
So let's look at evolving models of care then. Let's start off with that, because we are speaking about what's happening with digital care and the evolution that we're seeing at the moment, this aging population. Earlier, Dr. Yale, you spoke about home-to-pull or home hospital, and I know that while you're based in Finland, you do have operations here in Singapore. Can you tell us how aged models of care are evolving on the back of this digital revolution? How is it changing the way that your staff are working with your clients, the people that stay with you within the Hovi Care facilities?
Well, the latest one is the online care that we started providing to our clients who are at home due to the COVID situation. And another kind of new steps that we've taken is towards the artificial intelligence, which can provide a safety net for our clients while they are not with us. So the system is monitoring the well-being of the clients remotely. And thirdly, I think one of the most interesting things that we are looking into is the partnership with Panasonic, where a video is registering clients' changes in mobility. So we can use technology in order to augment the picture that we have of our clients' well-being all the time.
Can you tell us more about Hovi Online, though? Because I'm assuming that the care model is transforming as well from not just physical care. And I know, Kelvin, this is something that you spoke about, and we can go back into your presentation a little bit later as well. But can you tell us more about the concept of Hovi Online and how that works?
Basically, for those clients who are not able to come to our Fort City senior daycare, we provide, the session to our clients at home. It's normally about 2 hours long. It includes all the elements of the holistic care, including the social aspect, the physical training, as well as the memory training. So we have a selection of different type of activities, and we tailor that 2 hours based on what the client is excited about, so that we can connect and keep the client motivated throughout that time.
So just going back to something that you mentioned earlier, I want to ask you, do you think, or how can elderly care services be franchised given what's happening in the moment in the market?
Well, we have a franchise model. We've been running in Finland for 30 years, and I think the idea is that you don't need to, and you shouldn't reinvent the wheel, and that's why we packaged everything together. And our first franchise unit is now running in Bali, in Indonesia, and we are looking into the Asian area altogether and seeing if and how we could have more impact on other people's lives as well through the franchise opportunity that we provide.
Now, Dr. Kelvin, earlier in your presentation, you spoke about, Singapore's limited landmass. and that that accelerates the need for technology to help with nursing care here in Singapore. So can you tell us more about where you see the key areas of growth within this particular arena?
Yeah, I think when I mentioned about the constraint of space in Singapore, I'm saying that in terms of more nursing homes, more nursing beds, it's not going to be sustainable. So therefore, the whole approach towards active aging at a home level, training the caregivers to be more equipped and more savvy with use of technology will actually help to bring that kind of quality of care to the seniors in a longer time and properly skilled in that way. So digital technology in the form, for example, I mentioned about social robots, and social robots are not just a robot doing vacuum cleaning work and stuff like that. It's really a companion to keep the seniors happy, to have the quality of life so that they don't feel depressed, they are not socially isolated. And I think such technology help to complement and not to replace humans altogether. That's why I mentioned about high touch and also high tech. It has to resonate and it has to be humanized. So any technologies that have kind of user interface that is humanized enough to create that satisfaction and happiness is very important.
And while we're on the topic of social interaction, I just want to go back to Dr. Oren's presentation, and you shared with us your Beffy, which is behind you in your background at the moment. So perhaps can you tell us more about because we're not just taking care of physical, and we're going to get into the physical a little bit later, but it's about mental well-being as well. And some of the statistics that you shared in your presentation, I think you shared that currently 900 million worldwide, we've got 900 million worldwide elderly people. More than 30% of them are reporting loneliness. And when we're looking at the market here, there's a spending power there of about $15 trillion annually. But tell us more about the concept of a tech pet. What part can they play in really tackling loneliness? And is it the same thing? I've got a cat, but would a robot fill its place?
Yeah, so probably your cuddly, cute cat will not be replaced to this full extent. But on the other hand, that pet robot may offer some attributes that your cat cannot offer you. For example, play chess with you, or provide you with breathing guidance in order to reduce stress, alleviate stress, and provide you with cognitive behavioral therapy tools, interaction in human voice. So we're trying to create something that would be like a mesh of different technologies. On the one hand, like the pets that kids are adoring, and partly, according to many studies, elderlies are well accepting. And with a variety of technology tools that were already shown clinically to be effective with elderly populations using computers. Like, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy is as effective, if not even more effective than real human being, a psychologist near you. At least some of the techniques of psychology are effective. So we're meshing all of this together in a very user-friendly way. That's the art and the science that we're spending a lot of resources on in order to make sure that cuddly, in this case a panda, but it could be a cat or a dog or any other animal, would be a good fit for as a friend. So think of it as your friend, as the best friend that can communicate with you, but offer you some, if not some of the attributes of your cuddly cat that you're so
let's talk about that as well from a perspective in terms of support. What impact do these robotic pets have? We're talking about the impact of relieving stress, and then therefore how that would help with, for example, chronic diseases within patients. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of work on the linkages between, regardless of robots, in terms of the linkages between stress, mental stress, and chronic diseases. And essentially, that's a common denominator of all chronic illnesses, and many of the other illnesses, even terminal illnesses like cancers, a variety of cancers. Mm-hmm. The minute you deal with the stress and you relieve it, and we found some innovative ways of relieving stress through breathing guidance, that is personalized and AI-driven, you can treat diabetes effectively as part of a whole lifestyle intervention. If you're moving, you're reducing stress, that's the game changer that enables people to adapt healthy lifestyle. And they can start losing weight, they can start reverse their diabetes if they just had like diabetes in the last few years starting. And there's like amazing clinical evidence on that. Now, all of that was typically done with live coaches online, or alternatively with software services, remote services. And we felt that a companion that will be right next to you would provide all of the above plus many more aspects because it is there and providing you with a lot of emotional support. You can touch it, you can hug it, and hugging is also has a major stress relief attribute. And so for us, it's not just the loneliness per se, it's the effect of the stress relief on loneliness and other chronic illnesses. And post-COVID-19, all these numbers that I mentioned, at 30% on the loneliness, the numbers are skyrocketing right now, post-COVID or during COVID era. And we don't have like accurate statistics, but what I do have statistics from is from the regular general population. 80% of the population in the United States were reporting anxiety attacks, okay? During these, during the first wave, and now coming winter in the States, probably we're going to encounter more of that. So there is a major effect on COVID on the elderly population, which is not counted as one of the COVID, side effects. You just see more people that are chronically ill with more severe situations, and not always you attribute that to the COVID. So I think that to the extent that pet robots would have been available to their homes, that could have offset some, major part, I think, of these force majeure called COVID and social isolation that was a byproduct of it.
Yeah, and so I've got to ask though, I'm intrigued, what's the difference between a robo-pet and, these humanoid robots that Dr. Kelvin spoke about earlier? In terms of, the benefits, perhaps there's a difference in terms of time that needs to be spent with each of them throughout the day. Can you share more? Dr. Kelvin, perhaps?
Yeah, sure. I think, between a pet and a humanoid, the difference is the pet is not always appealing to people who doesn't have pet before, right? So seniors who haven't dealt with a cat and suddenly you put a pet in front of senior, they may get frightened instead of being receptive to it. Whereas if you have a humanoid, a cute-looking 3-year-old boy, to them it's, hey, this looks like, my grandchild or my children when they're young. So that kind of interactions is actually a more natural interaction. So in our research in Hong Kong with the nursing home, 7 of them, we realized that that kind of resonance is higher because the engagement is much more warm. There's more emotional recall to it. And I would like to bring up the gender aspect of it. It's important that we don't generalize that male and female will accept robots straight away, because the female, being the more soft part of, they have a more emotional part of their recall, will accept a pet robot or humanoid more. But a male gentleman, if you pass a robot to them that looks like a stuffed toy, they feel that this masculinism is gone when they're carrying this pet around. So we have to be a bit more sensitive to the demographic of the person they're trying to bring this intervention or this piece of joy of robot to them. Yeah, so there is a difference.
And we've actually got a question that's come in from one of our listeners, and they've asked, perhaps, Minas, this is for you. Can a social humanoid transform into an exoskeleton in time to come that perhaps aids in mobility?
You mean a humanoid that can also become an exoskeleton?
Yes. This is coming from one of our listeners, yes.
Yes, potentially yes. I work on both. I work both on humanoids and on exoskeletons. We have never tried to combine them. And I think that it's a very good idea, and I welcome your listener to send me an email in order to discuss further about it. But I believe that the people do not realize that robotics is not ready. The field of robotics is not ready. And this was evident now with COVID-19. We work hard every day in order to provide more dexterous robots, but we are not there yet. The robots cannot be really useful in home environments, in dynamic environments. And we need to spend a lot of time working on new technologies, on new motors, on new sensors. We don't have the core technologies that are needed in order to make the robots as dexterous as they need to be in order to be really useful.
You're listening to Money FM 89.3, and you're listening to a special panel discussion as part of AIBotics 2020 Go Digital, organized by APARA and Sphere Exhibits, a subsidiary of Singapore Press Holdings. And we're discussing digital care and the new normal post-COVID-19. And with us on the panel, we have Mr. Jussi Peltonen, and he's the CEO of Hobby Care Group in Finland, Dr. Kelvin Tan from the Singapore University of Social Sciences, Dr. Oren First from the Interactive Companion in Israel, Dr. Yael Benvenisti, the CEO of Mediterranean Towers Ventures in Israel, and Dr. Minas Liaro-Kapis from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. Dr. Minas, just following on from that as well, perhaps you could tell us, because we've spoken about the emotional elements when it comes to digital care. Can you tell us more about how technology can be used to help tackle tasks such as activities of daily living? I know during your presentation earlier, you spoke about some of the World Stroke Organization statistics that, 1 in 6 people worldwide will suffer a stroke in their lifetime. More than 3/4 of those stroke survivors report arm weakness, and more than 50% of the types of grasps require thumb support. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I will talk mainly about robotic solutions because I work on robotics. Robotics has the ability to offer a lot of solutions in assisting people to increase their dexterity. For example, the exogloves that I presented earlier today can be really useful for many people around the world. The problem that we have right now is that the prices in the market, they cannot be afforded, these devices, by many people. They are very expensive. When you have a prosthetic device or an exoskeleton device that can cost as much as a sport car, you understand that a lot of people do not have access to these devices. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to invent better ways of assisting people, better ways of increasing their dexterity with affordable materials and with clever solutions that will become affordable devices in the market at some point. And we want to give these technologies to many people, to people around the world, to countries that suffer from poverty or war, and we want to increase our impact. A lot of roboticists, we are trying to bring robotics towards the people. We plan to bring people and robots together and to make the impact of robotics as big as possible.
So, Dr. Benvenisti, I have to ask you, Mediterranean Towers Ventures was the first fund in Israel dedicated to investing exclusively in technology. Where are the investment opportunities here? I mean, we're on Money FM 89.3 after all. Can you tell us, we've heard from, different areas of robotics, from supporting the physical to the mental, and also from care centers as well. So from your perspective, what are you looking at, and what are some of the key trends you're seeing in the market?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of technologies out there. There are robots and AI and machine learning, and all of them are examples for technology that we can use when we try to address the challenges of the older population. I think now, after a few years that I'm in the field, I know that we are less and less looking for products. We are looking for services that are based on technology. And then I will give you an example. Let's take, for example, the pendant that has the stress button on it. People will not buy the stress button if there is no service behind it, because they have nothing to do with the product. The same people will not buy a medical robot if there is not a service, a medical service that is connected to this machine, to this product. So if we want to succeed in marketing some new products, some new technologies, there should be a service that is connected to these products. And this is the next trend. We're not looking for products, we're looking for new services, for new ideas, how to create, how to let older adults to live independently in their community, in their home, and knowing that if there is something wrong, help will be on the way. And help will be on the way only if there is a service connected to the product.
And let's just put the size of the industry in context as well. During your presentation, you highlighted that the aging economy is projected to hit $27 trillion by 2025, and that we're likely to see annual growth in the age tech space of 21%. So tell me more about, what are some of the key projects that you're working on at the moment?
Well, it's a huge market, really. The market is a combination of all the aspects around our life. It can be the social aspects, the medical, the health aspects, economic aspect. Every aspect that we have in our life affects also the older adults. So there is a huge opportunity for new services, for new technologies. There are barriers, of course. I think the most really important barrier is about sharing knowledge. I think the entrepreneurs do not know how to segmentize the population and how to segmentize who is the payer and who is the end user that eventually use the product. And I think there is lack of knowledge from the side of the end users themselves. They really don't know what there is out there. They don't know what to look for. There are a lot of technologies that are out there that are ready for market, but nobody knows that they are ready for the market because we have a barrier of sharing knowledge. So this kind of radio shows or conferences is very important because people must know what is going to be out there and what is already in the market, adopt the technologies, because now the prices are high as we see more and more technologies that are in the market adopted by the population. The prices will get lower and lower, and we will see it will be a common thing all over the world.
What kind of impact has COVID-19 had on the industry from your perspective?
Well, I think COVID-19 has done something wonderful for the aging population. I think the conversation about aging shifted from being vulnerable or need help to how to maintain your activities, how to maintain an active life, engage with your family, engage with your community, and not just speaking about how vulnerable is older adults, how they are being fraud or violence against the older adults. There are a lot of good aspects that we must address now. The society must think about to reduce loneliness, to get to encourage people to be more active and be more engaged in the community. There are a lot of startups dealing with loneliness, dealing with video conversation, how to improve social services, health services, reduce their costs and reduce geographical limits. And be more diverse. So I think COVID-19, it's not so a good thing that happened to the world, but when we are talking about the aging population, it did something good. It shifted the conversation.
Yussi, I just want to go back to your business in terms of care for the elderly. How did COVID-19 impact your business, and what are some of the ways that you had to pivot and re-strategize to cater and cope with what's happening in the market?
Our senior daycare facility had to go into lockdown in the beginning of the year. And that meant that our clients were sort of stuck at home, which again caused a lot of trouble for the families as well, because they had to run their lives, and previously the clients had been with us throughout the day. What we needed to do quite fast was to come up with the online care content, and I think technology in that part helped us in the sense that it's possible to offer a wide range of selection of different things to choose from, and this helps us to tailor the product for the individual, because I think technology is also helping to provide the kind of the spectrum of services that this particular client needs and is beneficial from. So I think that's been one. Another thing that I think we'll be just touching a little bit is the cost. The cost needs to be reasonable, and for that we were looking at the technology which is already available in the client's homes, and we're just using tablets or laptops for that online care. So no investment in technology was required for that. I think for you guys here in Singapore, like Dr. Kelvin Tan was saying, is that you need openness to technology, and Singapore, compared to Finland, for example, is much more open for different types of technology, both from the government's perspective, but also from the families and the clients themselves. So I think you have a good chance of using technology in order to overcome these challenges in aging. You have really a distinct advantage there as a nation.
And cultural differences is an important point as well. And we've actually just received another question that's come in, and this is to all of you. It says, with different cultures, livelihoods, and value systems, what are the views from the panel members about designing and matching the right technology to respective elderly individuals? I think, Dr. Yale, earlier you said you can't paint the whole elderly population with one brush. You're nodding there. Dr. Yale, would you like to start us off with that?
Yes, of course, there is a diversity among the older adults. One thing that we are doing in our fund is opening the information all around the world. As I told in my presentation, I represent an organization, Aging 2.0, which is an international organization. It's based in San Francisco, but it has more than 120 ambassadors all over the world. So when we have a new technology, when we want feedback from other cultures, from other countries, we just write emails to our ambassadors, and we will get all the information and all the important points that we must address when we want to launch this product around the world.
Dr. Oren, what are your thoughts with this, with regards to the robo-pets and the other technologies that you're developing as well? How do you match them with different individuals depending on their cultural backgrounds and their personal backgrounds as well?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, so personalization is key. So everything we do is actually personalized down to the level of a specific person, be it in the form of fitting, a nutrition regimen or a stress relief regimen, and clearly the language and even the look and feel of the pet robot itself. So we're building it as a modular approach. So, for example, behind me there's a panda. We were thinking originally of clearly Asia population, but we clearly very quickly saw that pet is adorable by many people around the world in different cultures. That being said, we plan to offer other skins, so to speak, to this same robot, in a sense. So the physical attributes will even look different. When it comes to the software, it's all software and sensors, and clearly we're doing a lot of leveraging a lot of different sensors and behind-the-scene cloud-based services, and that goes back to Yael's point about services. The services would be geography and context dependent, be it if a person is the needs of a person at a nursing home was obviously different than the one that is like living 1,000 kilometers from their kids. So we're trying to build a platform that would be adaptable to many different contexts, both at the personal level as well as the location, in terms of the level of independence or the level of, based on the geography and the country, etc., etc. So it's all about personalization at the end of the day, and we try to adhere to address all of that.
And Dr. Minas as well. Obviously, personalization is key when you're developing, a robotic limb for an individual. Can you tell us more about how you need to adapt and change depending on the background of the individual that you're working with, or what are some of the key considerations that you put into effect when you're developing a key piece of technology?
Yeah, we develop all our designs so as to be easily parameterized to the different dimensions of the different people. So you can have a prosthetic or an exoskeleton glove that can be fully customized and fully personalized. But I think that this is luxury to have personalized and customized devices these days. First, we need to provide the capability. First, we need to make sure that we have really useful robots, and then we can start discussing about personalization. I don't think that we are there yet. And I agree with the other people that in some fields, services make a lot of sense and they add a lot of value to the products. But in robotics, we don't even have the products yet. And this was evident now with COVID-19. COVID-19 came and it found the robotics field unprepared. Now we know the problems, we know the challenges, and we work really hard in order to be ready for the next pandemic.
So what were some of the key challenges then that were highlighted that you're going to have to shift and adapt with the technology that you're developing?
We need the academics, we need to rewire our brains. You know, most of the people working in robotics these days, they are academics in universities. We need to rewire our brains, and we need to understand that robotics do not operate just in the labs. We need to take robotics in home environments. And the home environments, they are very dynamic, very unstructured, they change all the time. You cannot do your research only for the lab and then to not care about the stakeholders of the technology that you develop. We need to engage with the stakeholders, and we need to address the real life problems of robotics technologies.
Dr. Kelvin, you're nodding there. What are some of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks. I think I do agree that in the context, it has to be facilitating in terms of condition. The family members and the caregivers and friends around the seniors are very important to support technology and the adoption. So, when I mentioned about the environment aspects, where we are getting a bit more packed and people are staying at home more. So the condition of friends and supporting environment is very key. And I think in Singapore, we are very lucky that, the IMDA has digital ambassadors that go out and talk to the seniors how to use e-payment, how to use mobile. And that's phase one, right? So the phase two will be how to get them to be more familiarized with other technologies like robots, like AI. And then I think that's where individualized approach becomes a bit more important. And on the other hand, also I mentioned about the fact that robots are a form of companionship. They are there 24 hours with seniors. I think that is a good respite. We shouldn't forget that the caregivers and people around them are very stressed up if they can't have a good rest to do their own lives as well. So we shouldn't just focus on the seniors. We should focus on the whole space, the whole community, and also good that in Singapore we are a smart nation driven vision. We are trying to create more proof of concepts so that we can actually have sandboxes to test in different communities, different cultural places. We have Malay community or Indian community or Chinese community, and they could be quite different because of the kind of needs, and there could be spiritual needs that we should also be very sensitive to for seniors.
Yes, Yusi, what are your thoughts?
I was just thinking, one of the things of the culture is basically who's living at home. Here in Finland, our elderly are living by themselves, whereas in Singapore, it's a bigger family living in the same apartment, and that sort of makes the role of the family members stronger while planning that care for the elderly. But it also creates challenges for the technology because if we have some monitoring technology, the system has difficulties in finding out who's moving in this apartment right now. Together with Panasonic's technical guys, we are looking at ways on how the artificial intelligence can identify the person amongst the group of people, and this way we can guide that evaluation and data to that particular client so that it doesn't get mixed up. So I think that's a strong aspect as well. in practice for us.
We have another question that's come in, and it touches on something that you and Dr. Kelvin were just talking about, and that's also how can digital technology help with intergenerational communications using technology to bridge generation gaps? Dr. Kelvin, you mentioned this in terms of the context of understanding, some of the social aspects, religious aspects as well. Yusi, is this something that you've seen as well within your care home facilities in terms of how the tech that you're looking to implement can bridge those gaps?
For us, yes. It seems to be that it's actually the kids who are often teaching the elderly how to use mobile devices or tablets. And I think it's a great way to sort of empower the kid also and to sort of create that bridge amongst the different age groups. So we highly encourage all kinds of interaction across the different.
And Dr. Yale?
Yes, I think that technology is a wonderful platform for intergenerational connection, because the young generation are used to play with technology, are used to spend time with technology. And when the older adults and the young generation have a mutual platform to communicate, then it will be wonderful. In my presentation, I demonstrate in a company called Obi that is producing games for nursing homes. The games are projected on a table, on a regular table, and you can move around and touch the table and it operates the game. The same games are for children are being used in McDonald's in their special tables. So the same games that older adults with special adaptations, of course, are playing are the same in the same platform are being used for children. So this is just an example how technology can be fit for both generations.
And Dr. Oren, I want to ask you, because I'm looking at Beffy behind you, my eyes are drawn to this panda. And how can personalized pets bridge that generational gap? I'm assuming when it comes to care as well, because the panda also monitors sleep assistance, it provides alerts. So how can that help to bridge any kind of issues when it comes to monitoring one of your parents or, somebody that you're caring for, but also how can it become a bonding tool?
Yeah, that's a great point. So thank you. So we can start with the basic. The basic is really the remote telecare. So to the extent that we have a variety of sensors and also communication with the elderly person, the younger person in the family, so to speak, can receive feedback in real time, any summaries in terms of at the status, the health status, both physical and emotional status of the elderly person and living far away from him or her. That by itself has a major value for both the elderly person knowing that they're being taken care of, also in terms of the attributes of health remotely, even in the form of alerts, let alone if there's like remote services. But that's with the family. So first of all, reports and alerts to the family member. But in terms of the bonding, we're working on a variety of tools that would be on the interaction. I mean, for example, if you were to hug someone, okay, there are a variety of different directions, all based on the same core platform. If you're hugging, for example, a pet, okay, if that pet will respond very similarly to your grandchild that is like 3,000 miles away from you, I think that would have a tremendous emotional impact on the elderly person. Okay. Now, if you have a similar panda or a similar creature, so to speak, on the other side with the grandchild, and they're hugging each other's their own pet, but these pets are combined, in a sense they're linked. Then you have the physical attributes of remote hugging, something that every grandchild and every grandfather or grandmother would tell you is the most important thing in a meeting a grandchild, is this first hug and last hug, and that's something that I think it was never offered by technology thus far. So grabbing technology with features that are available. That is, we're fine-tuning things that exist already, but do it in a very culture and age respecting manner. So it's not really pure technology. It's really with the physical attributes, trying to offer some of the attributes of animals, some of the attributes of human being, but and the choice of a pet is just, it's not a human. We saw actually that in many cases the humanized approaches are sometimes getting people frightened because they're not really human beings, but they're not robots. When animals, at least the ones that looks exactly like stuffed animals, people are accustomed to this for ages, for hundreds of years. They've been accustomed to stuffed animals. So in this case, we can have these linkages between different ages and different geographies, or this bridge the geographic distance between the generations using this innocent, huggable pets.
Now, I have to say, when we started talking about this panel with an hour to discuss, I thought, what can we talk about? But there's just so much to cover with this area and with all of you as well. But I'm just going to end with one last question for each of you. I'm going to ask you to answer it just in one sentence as well. We're still in the midst of this pandemic. Many people are looking to pivot and to shift gear. Some may be inspired to join healthcare or even healthcare tech. For those looking to pursue age tech and this sector, what is one piece of advice that each of you would give them? UC, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I think, like I said earlier on, you shouldn't reinvent the wheel. And thus, I think the franchise model that we provide will take you 30 years ahead with your competition. So I think the setup needs to be right with the elderly care from the first time. So I'd encourage people to approach us and see if we can set up something in Singapore or in the countries around, because we need to also learn from other countries' best practices in order to be able to respond to this aging.
Dr. Kelvin, what are your thoughts very quickly?
Sure. I think high tech, high touch. Don't just view technology as cold connection, but you should have hot connection. And what's hot connection? Means the kind of recall, the kind of engagement, the kind of interaction, the kind of conversation and can create between the senior and those who care for the seniors. That's very important for technology. And
Dr. Oren?
I think that really the physical attributes of combining physical attributes and focusing really on the emotional aspect of the elderly rather than the sorting out errands or being like a physical, lending hand. I think that focusing on the brain and the mind of the elderly person, that's something that most robots work thus far was not focusing enough on.
And Dr. Minas, what would you say to somebody who's looking to go into this sector?
Yeah, I would use only one word: collaborate. We need to collaborate. We can only beat this pandemic and the next pandemic together. And we need lots of new talent that will work with us in order to address the problems and the challenges that we have identified, and in order to make the world more prepared for the next pandemic.
And Dr. Yell, final words from you, please.
For the entrepreneurs, I will say you must know your clients, segmentize the population correctly. And for the older adults, I will say if you try technology and you fail, blame the technology. The technology is not good enough, try another one. You are okay, you are perfectly fine for adopting technology. There is no age barrier for adopting technologies.
You've been listening to a panel discussion as part of AIBotics 2020 Go Digital Series. A very special thank you to all of our speakers who have joined us over the last hour. Mr. Jussi Peltonen, and he's the CEO of Hobbicare Group in Finland. Dr. Kelvin Tan from Singapore University of Social Sciences. Dr. Oren First from Interactive Companion in Israel. Dr. Yael Ben-Vanisti, CEO of Mediterranean Towers Ventures in Israel. And Dr. Minas Liro-Kapis from the University University of Auckland in New Zealand. This has been AIBotics 2020 Go Digital, organised by APARA and Sphere Exhibits, a subsidiary of Singapore Press Holdings, right here on Money FM 89.3.
Thank you, Rachel. We are close to conclusion, and I would like to thank as participants. Oliver, take it over, please.
Okay, thanks, Yossi. With many thanks to all the speakers from our keynote all the way through to our 5 presenters. The panel discussion bring very interesting highlights on what we have in mind. What is interesting that came out from the panel discussion was the discussion around potentially digital divide, technology that could possibly create a fear in the elderly in using. And I like Dr. Il's comment that, if the technology doesn't work, it is not their fault. It's the technology that didn't work for them. We also talk about how we can match technology to the humans, and that's very much an important factor. Also, more importantly, is how can we use technology to connect between different generations, and that can be a very, very powerful use of technology. A thought came to mind as we were talking about this. We talk about interactive companions, we talk about pets that can help the elderly, technology that can support the elderly. Perhaps one day with families where the grandparents and the grandchildren are living miles apart, we could possibly have companion twins. And like what Dr. Oren was saying, right? When I cuddle the pet in one country, the same compassion, the same feeling could be felt in another country, and that bridges the generations together. So once again, thank you very much for the panel discussion. This has been great. Thank you, Yossi Lahat, for hosting this webinar. It has been a very, very insightful discussion.